Well, good morning. Appreciate those that are here this morning and those that will be coming online hopefully shortly. In regards to our second part of our prophecy update that we started last week. So here, June 19th, 2022. And in case I forget, happy Father's Day to all those fathers that are out there. And fathers soon to be. Last week it was a coming food shortage and rising food costs or price increases. And today we just kind of retitled it Coming Shortages and Price Increases Part 2, or Hard Times Are Coming and How to Prepare. As we begin our study this morning, I want to put out a special thank you for the wisdom and the input that I've received over the last several months and even off and on during the years from Mike and Ruthie Raper, Eddie Waldrop, Mike Taylor, my wife Patricia Souders, and numerous others that I cannot remember at this time. But for literally the hundreds of hours, days, and months of research and study and talking back and forth and the things that we've looked into to confirm things like that, how these same time periods of our sharing that we have learned from each other, we've double-checked, we've triple-checked everything and more, as well as YouTube resources from qualified experts that are in the field. And there's also a few minimal few resources from books I've studied. And if you'd like a copy of those books, just simply email me and request the names of those books at lessonsonthejourney@yahoo.com. And I'll send you the 2 or 3, not books, but the names of the books that I recommend. But hopefully last week and this week will keep you from having to go through tremendous books. There's about 3 that are just tremendous. And let's go to the Lord in prayer. Father, I thank you so much for allowing us to be here this morning, this Father's Day, for us as we celebrate here in the United States. But most of all, that it's your day every day. And as we go into this prophetic update and helping to prepare the body of Christ and others for what's coming, I truly ask, Lord, let it be to the honor of our Savior, Jesus Christ, Lord, whom we're going to see soon face to face. We know his coming is imminent. And with the prophecies that God seen fulfilled, with everything leading towards the tribulation period, I know it's even at the doors. So whatever time we have left here, may we be prepared, and may we be able to provide for our families or ourselves as individuals. As we learn from this study, may we apply what applies to us. And if it doesn't apply to us, then we just ignore those things and we go on. But as I've said, may Jesus be honored, uplifted, and glorified in all that we do and say here now. We ask it according to his name, and all God's people said, amen. I've got 24 pages of notes to go through. Some of it I'll skim over. I have a listings of things I'll not mention, like 96 things. But anyhow, first let's start off with things that have happened in the news just this past few weeks. This is from Progressive Farmer. They have stated now as high of 10,000 head of cattle have died. 10,000. Now I want to encourage you to go to YouTube, look up and watch, and this is the name of it. Thousands of cattle suspiciously die in Kansas heat wave, what happened, ? There's thousands more than just died in Kansas. It's put out by YANASA, YANASA TV. Of all the things I've been listening to, it's probably literally the best insight to what has happened, and it looks at all the possibilities of what could have happened to these cows. So they talk about the heat. He talks about the heat. It's about a 30-minute program. Talks about the heat itself. He talks about it could have been in the feed, bales of fescue. When the cows eat that, it can raise the temperature of the rumens in the cow's stomach and cause all kinds of problems in their heat temperature to rise. They talk about the soil degradation, aquifer problems as far as water provision, respiratory disease, which are some people saying they all had the same respiratory problem. But listen, if that's the case, not all the cows would have died at the exact same time with the same respiratory problem. He says there's still a lot of unanswered questions. Large safety measures are taken at these feed places that these cows have gone. There's also reports of drones having been confirmed flying in the area, which questions regarding water contamination from those drones. Was it a biological weapon? There have been times in the past documented where the fake meat companies have what they call monkey wrenchers. They're extremists that go in and they destroy the ozone. They destroy the cows because they say the cows, because of their gas, is destroying the ozone, which is the dumbest thing I've ever heard in my life. Actually, and they go out and they kill these cows. Food processors process about 2,000 cattle a day. And by losing just 2,000, that alone, the 3,000 they say died in Kansas, but now they say it's been a total of 10 all over, is going to put a very huge ding in the food supply chain. And the biggest red flag is, and as he ends this thing out, and he looks at everyone objectively, this happened with so many animals so quickly that there should have been some type of reaction or prevention from those overseeing that was happening, and yet there's definitely a problem. Or as somebody on Facebook stated, and I quote, "Cattle have existed in extreme heat since the beginning of time. If you believe that literally thousands have died all at once on one farm from just heat, then maybe you should have been homeschooled," close quote. So I agree with that. There's something else going on here. You draw your own conclusions. But know this, whatever caused these minimum 3,000 cows up to 10,000 cows to have died, trust me, it's going to cause major food problems for us in the next several months. Tie that in with, I quote, billionaire Bill Gates prior to June 1st, at that time, owned 242,000 acres of farmland. Now my question is, what is he going to do with it? We know his idea on not wanting to eat meat and the population decrease, etc. Is he going to prevent things to be farmed during that time or on his property? That's a lot of acreage. But now, just recently, in the last few days, he purchased an additional 2,100 acres of the Red River Valley farmland called Campbell Farms North Dakota Farmland. And nobody in the deal seems eager to talk about it. It almost reminds me of what the old saying we've been using, nothing to see here, just keep walking. There's been another fire, listen, another fire at another food processing plant on June 13th this past week. Are you kidding me? This time at a food processing plant in west of Waupaca County in Wisconsin. It's the 6th fire at a food processing plant in June alone. Now listen, 86 this year. That's a lot of coincidences. And I have here listed, this is the 97th or 98th food processing plant that has been destroyed or burnt considerably and livestock killed and etc. in the last 2 years. And yet, if you listen to those that are in charge, they say, listen, this is all normal. No, I don't think it is. And again, nothing to see here. Just keep on walking. Other events that have occurred, one source stated that profits for truckers has dropped 60% per week due to fuel cost increases. They're seeing for the first time no loads on the open food broker boards. Never have they seen the broker boards market crash like this in 6 years of business. And they're warning customers, and I quote, empty grocery store shelves are about to hit. Now last week we talked about the need to having food and water and that we need to be putting that back now. Another one is a large installation company in Northeast Ohio, says they haven't been able to get R49 fiberglass bats for over a year. They recommend if you're thinking about insulating your attic or increasing that insulation, you need to insulate it as quick as you can because it's already not available, and what is available is what they have on stock. In Iowa, a $562 million beef processing plant has come to a halt due to the rising construction costs that would have employed hundreds of people. Walmart in Highland, Illinois says they can no longer get NyQuil or even its generic brand, it's no longer available. One of the largest major trucking firms has 40 semis that need repair, but they are unable to get parts. They're having to cannibalize them to keep them on the road. A contractor from South Florida said, we're having an unprecedented growth and there's no sign of stopping, which is concerning me because our contractors are waiting for concrete blocks, windows, wood, and other resources you can name. Windows can be up to a year out, and everyone is moving down to Florida, and the infrastructure cannot handle it. I am 30 years old and grew up here, and what used to be a 15-minute ride across town now takes 45. A Smithfield pork meat plant just closed down, which so you can expect rising pork costs there and pork prices. Bottom line is, nothing to see here. Just keep walking. Well, times are getting worse and they're getting harder. What we're beginning to see is watch the snowball forming and just now starting to roll down the hill. You understand what I'm saying? You make a snowball, you start it rolling down the hill, and it picks up speed and picks up speed and gets bigger and bigger and bigger until it crashes into something. That's what's happening to us with food and with water and with things that we're buying on a regular basis, things that we need in business, things we need in our homes, etc. We've not seen the full effect yet of this snowball that has started, but give it time and you will. And that time is literally very short. So in our prophetic update today, these last 2 weeks, we've talked about being prepared, and that's what our whole point is. So we've talked about the things that have been happening this week. What we need to know is that it is crucial that in order for us to prepare for any crisis, any recession or depression, or any hard times, or even with them trying to force, if you will, this great reset on mankind, we need to be ready. And if nothing else, we need to be ready just like our grandparents were ready, or maybe your great-grandparents were, because they knew how fragile things could get. They knew how you couldn't obtain certain items, and therefore they prepared ahead of time. And that doesn't matter if it's the Great Reset or bad weather coming or hard times hit, you lose your job. What are you going to do if you lose your job with all that's going on and you now have no food to eat? Well, you've got a little bit of food put back in your pantry, and as we talked about last week, making an inventory and putting those expiration dates, and how some of those items will last even 6 months to a year longer the expiration date. You just have to look them up. But again, it's preparing ahead of time for hard times that are coming. Now, whether you agree with me or not on the list I'm getting ready to go through, and you don't have to agree. We can agree to disagree. And I'm going to tell you all the things I have listed that I'm going to go over with you today. I've not done all these things. Oh, I wish I had. But we've not. I mean, you have to do it according to your money and according to priorities. We've got a list. We're doing things as we can. But anyhow, in this presentation, we do know that food bills, no matter what you decide to do, are going up. They're going to continue to go up. The money you spend now is buying less than you could buy even 6 months ago, and it's that way across the board. But right now we're beginning to experience the birth pangs of the baby that's about to come, right? For the you that have been out there pregnant, this is not Braxton Hicks. This is actual you starting to go into labor. And we're on the cusp of experiencing serious shortages of food and other supplies. Now, last week we focused, as I said, on food and water. I'm not going to take the time to try and recap any of that message here this morning, or we'll never get through in time in order to do something else. So what we are going to do, and we just don't have the time, I do encourage you, if you did not get to listen to last week's message on food and water and how to prepare, please go back and listen to it. Get a pen and paper, take notes, back it up, listen to it again while you still can listen to it before they possibly take it down. And then get started. Okay, don't wait another week. Don't wait 2 weeks. Don't wait 3 weeks from now. Get started right now. And whether the government is listening to this or not, and I'm sure they probably are, and you think, are you kind of being paranoid? You don't believe me? Let me say this. Just start talking about something around your phone, or visit a certain website of looking at an object or a product you're thinking about buying. And it won't be 30 minutes to an hour before that ad for that product or products begins popping up on your emails, your Facebook, your news feed, etc. Trust me, they're listening. You and I are being monitored every single second of the day. Cell phones, even when they're off, do you know that somebody can turn those on and you'll not know they're on? They can watch and listen to what you and I are doing without us knowing our cell phone is being monitored. Smart TVs. Did you know that the originator of the internet put black duct tape over the camera on his television? Because he said he knew back then we were constantly being monitored. Same with your computer. Social media. Alexa, do such and such. And she does it. Siri is another one. I'm not telling you not to use these, but they are keeping a record. They're getting a pattern. Everything you buy, they're keeping a record of that because it's monitored. We don't have time to go into it this morning, etc. But you and I are being tracked. Our interests, what we post, things we say, things we want, where we go, etc. As our government states that China is now the source for everyone to emulate and to use as a pattern, They have millions upon millions of cameras. In addition to these things, they monitor everything they do. They're using ESG, environment, social, and governance to restrict the ability of their citizens of being able to do something, to get their money, to take out loans, to buy things if they don't conform. It's the same ESG that's now being implemented and incorporated into our banking system and other industries here in the United States. I'll share this with you and then we'll go on. I had a paramedic friend of mine that was marrying into a family with a high-ranking FBI member, and he asked his future father-in-law this question. All this stuff that we see on TV and movies, all the technical stuff that seems off the wall and what they're doing. He said, is any of that real? And he said, I'll tell you this, but I can't go any more in depth. He said, whatever you see on any movie, whatever you see on any television program when it comes to technology, our government is already 10 years beyond that point, and we're already using it. The population just doesn't know. So just give that a thought. Now, and also in preparing, let me say this, so if we do have somebody listening, I'm not advocating that you go out and become a hoarder, okay? Now, the problem with the definition of hoarding is dependent on who is interpreting that word and how they mean or what they mean by it. What may be providing for you and your family could easily be redefined by another agency as hoarding, and they say you're violating the law. Plus, the problem is that some will run into is that smaller families are going to need less, where larger families are going to need more than smaller families, and all these can throw up red flags. But what I am talking about last week and today is prayerfully providing for your family and protecting your family and protecting and providing for yourself. Now, how much that will entail is going to vary on several factors in your household and with each family unit. So let's get started with part 2 this morning. We're talking about non-food items. Now, let me start off this morning by asking you a couple of questions. Now, have you begun, first of all, inventorying your pantry and food supply like we talked about last week? Well, if you haven't, get started, okay? Nobody has time to do it, trust me. We are all so busy working multiple jobs, running to and fro, but you got to get it done. The second thing I want to ask is, have you sat down and come up with a strategic plan and written down what you need and what is most important? And then have you begun purchasing those items as you can afford them? Okay? Remember, food and water are the most important items you need in your home. Now, what I'm going to cover now is not listed in any particular order of importance. Again, some of these things you may agree or not agree with. There is one site and multiple places that I've got listed in here, and I'll tell you when it's like one of the top 15. But some of those top 15 you may not need, or you may see one of the non-top 15 items may be something you need over what's listed. So let's start off with money or cash. Most experts are saying right now you need a minimum of 1 month, preferably 3 months supply of cash put back at your home, somewhere in a secure place where only you can get your hands on it easily outside of your financial institution or banking system. Because if the banks end up going on a holiday, which is a fancy way of saying that they have to shut down for whatever reason, you're not even going to be able to get money out of the ATM machine. Now, if we're by digital when they make this transition, it's going to be even worse. Now, you'll have a set time that if you do have that cash, they'll allow you to bring it to the bank and they'll give you dollar for dollar, unless you're not on the high on the ESG scale, which you may get less credit. That $1,000 may be only worth $600. But if you don't get it in by the time they set that date, then money's going to be useless. Now, regarding gold and silver, I'm not telling you not to buy gold and silver. It definitely has more value than our current dollar, which has absolutely nothing now to back it up. Not only does it not have gold to back it up, but we don't have oil to back it up anymore either, so it's useless paper. I remember being in the Ukraine on one of the first mission trips we went on with Youth Evangelism Explosion. And they had the babushkas there, the older ladies, and they were eating. They would feed them once or twice a week, and they would do kind of different projects to minister to other people, etc. And the guy that was our sponsor said, "You see that lady sitting right there?" And they were dressed nice, but he said, "Walk over to the window with me." And we looked down at the bottom of the second story, and he said, "You see that grocery cart there that's got a few clothes and items in it and everything else?" And I said, "Yeah." He said, "That's the only belonging she owns now." She said she went to bed. She was one of the few women in Kyiv that was a multi-millionaire in that city, and woke up the next day and she was completely broke and had nothing left. So her finances went to nothing overnight. So it's definitely more valuable. Many are saying I'm buying gold and silver in case the economy collapses, but if they go to a digital system, nobody's going to accept the gold or silver, and you won't be able to use it to pay for anything under a digital financial situation. The other problem is you can't eat gold and silver. So these are things to think about. We're still here to see when everything goes digital. Again, we'll only have a special window of time to cash in the gold, silver, and cash that we have. Otherwise, it's going to have no value. So 1 month supply minimum of cash put back. So if the banks do shut down for a holiday or whatever, you have money still to pay your bills. They say try to get at least 3 months. I don't know how you're going to do that. Sell things that you don't need or whatever you have to do to take some things out of savings, but don't spend that money on something that you want. Don't use that money to prepare by buying food and water. That's money to set back for an emergency. So number 2, gas and fuel. We know that fuel prices are going to get higher and are already ridiculous. But let me encourage you, don't ever let your vehicle drop below a half a tank of gas or diesel at any time. Don't ever let it drop. I put under this, I don't know why, I meant to make it a separate one altogether, but let's make this one important papers. You need to make sure you've got in a notebook every single person in your family, whether they live with you now, whether they're married, whether you're used to your husband or wife, but you need in a notebook everything, because you know how some kids are, they're not going to do this at all. But the important information that you will need, that if everything shuts down or you can't find something, or you can put in a to-go bag, that if a fire were to happen, you could grab that bag and leave the house. And the things you needed are like a copy of your birth certificate, insurance policies, social security card, medical information, passport, insurance card, Medicare card, copy of driver's license, bank information, loan information, passwords for your accounts, credit card information, copy of your will, and any other thing you may deem important. You may even want to keep some pictures or something in there of your family, or USB drives. You can have that backed up that way also. But you need to have this thing together in order to put your hand on it at any time during an emergency. The next one, personal safety. The day and age in which we live is not the same as it was 10 years ago or even 5. People have become much more violent. They don't care as much. I think they've been conditioned and programmed to do so. And I think a lot of it's demonic in nature, and it's going to get worse. You must understand that people without Christ don't care about you. They have no conscience. They have no hesitancy to hurt you, rob you, rape you, beat you, torture you, and kill you. The danger lies is when godly, Christ-honoring Christians and people project our morals onto another person, thinking that they're going to feel the same way we do, act the way we do, think the way we do, or hold to the same values that we do. For you to think that nothing can happen, and that's not going to happen, but for you to think that nothing can ever happen to you, I'll be okay, and then take unwarranted chances. In fact, we ought to always be looking over our shoulder, watching other people, expect the unexpected, because to think that nothing can happen is being naive. It's not being wise as serpents, as harmless as doves. It's being extremely dangerous, and it's asking for trouble. Now, many martial arts schools are great in discipline and focus. They develop mental and physical strength. Learning the art of a system is wonderful, but most people who study martial arts, if they try to carry that over into a street fight, are going to get killed, because the street fighter does not play by rules. On the spiritual realm, we're commanded to be vigilant, because our adversary is going about like a roaring lion seeking whom he may devour. So spiritually, we should always be expecting the unexpected. We're to put on the whole armor of God, the helmet of salvation, the breastplate of righteousness, gird our loins with truth, to shod our feet with the preparation of the gospel of peace, to take the shield of faith, which is able to quench all the fiery darts and lies of the wicked one, and the sword of the Spirit, which is a short sword for in close fighting that the Israelis were expert in. We would know how, which is the word of God. We should be able to do that also. So from a spiritual standpoint, we're warriors. Now, if that's happening on the spiritual realm, and it is, you can count on that should be happening in the physical realm also. Over my life, not consistently, but I've had the privilege of studying, and not to the degree I wish I had. I studied Okinawan Kempo karate years ago. I studied Bailam Dao White Lotus system of Kung Fu. I took Taekwondo. And then I took target focus training, which is how to use violence to subdue someone and to kill them if needed in the first 3 to 5 seconds of a fight. Now, you say, is that Christian? Well, there's a whole paper I can send to you, whatever, if it is or not. But from a biblical standpoint, that's the key. Can we bring it back to the Word of God? Well, in the Old Testament, the children of Israel were experts in hand-to-hand combat, the use of the bow and arrow, the use of the sword, the use of the spear and the lance, and the sling. So many things they were expert in, and they were used by God to cleanse the land. Now, I'm not advocating violence and let's go out and do that, but I'm telling you, here's a people of God that were walking with God, that were experts in protecting themselves and others. In the New Testament, Mark 3:27, no one can enter a strong man's house and plunder his goods unless he first binds the strong man, and then he will plunder his house. So it's assumed that if somebody breaks into your home, the strong man or the person of the house, or if you're single and a female, you'll defend yourself. Luke chapter 22 and verse 36, Jesus talking to his disciples, started toward the end of his ministry. And then he said to them, and I quote, "But now he who has a money bag, let him take it, and likewise a knapsack. And he who has no sword, let him sell his garment and buy one." There had to be a reason for Jesus to tell the apostles to get one. Now, there's a vast difference of being persecuted for righteousness' sake. We don't protect ourselves from that. Peter, 1 Peter and 2 Peter have talked about that extensively, that we will be persecuted, have a good chance to, and that we don't offend ourselves against that. But when it comes to protecting you and your family outside of persecution for Christ, we're pretty much commanded to do so. Now, how then, or with what should you defend yourself? Well, here's not the place for that discussion. I don't want this taken down, but there are plenty of resources out there, and you may have some already, or you can decide if you need more. So let's talk about some non-food pantry items. These are not crucial, but they can make life a whole lot easier as things get worse. First of all, paper plates, cups, and bowls. If for some reason you must begin to ration your water, you don't want to be washing a lot of dishes every way in a dishwasher or a sink. So consider avoiding foam products, because it's better to stick to paper goods, because you can burn those paper goods for fuel in the fireplace or wherever you need them. Plastic forks, spoons, and knives are great to have. It doesn't take much to wash them. In fact, you can wash probably a huge handful in a little cups, a solo cup or a regular glass of soap and water. The amount would be according, how much do you need? Well, the amount you need is according to your size of your family, whether you're an individual or whether there's two of you or there's several at the house, or your multi-generational family with several children now living back at home. Also, paper towels. Cloth towels are much better for most things, and I would definitely keep a supply of them. You got old t-shirts, things you can clean with. I would definitely cut those up, make them into a rag for cleaning. But also paper towels can be reused if you dry your hands. I remember growing up, my mom and dad used to, don't you throw that paper towel away. Once we got through washing our hands good and drying them, we laid it out on the sink or somewhere by the sink so it would dry, and you know what? It does. And we used them again. Even some Ziploc bags at times. I remember we washed out those bags to keep from just using them over and over, put them on top of something and let them dry, and it's amazing. It makes your money go farther, so it's something to consider there. They also can be burned, paper towels. The next one I don't even talk about. I know it's going to be hard to believe. This is one of the top 15, okay? This is the top 15 toilet paper. Oh, my word. I don't even have to listen to this as number one. It's number one. In fact, I mean, do we even need to cover this? Because there are alternatives, right? But who wants to consider using the alternatives? I sure don't. Use this and wash it out and use it again. No, I don't think so, okay? But we do know that this item can become very scarce and have limited availability and supply if something happens. So my recommendation is you stock up now. When I was growing up, I guess it's because my dad came, as a young man, came through the recession or depression, whichever it was. We never, even back then, we didn't have cases of it because they didn't have a Costco and Sam's back then, but we had cases. At South Point, there's a Costco right down the road next to Walmart. Our closest is Sam's, We have a Costco like 30 miles, 35 miles from here. We have a Sam's in Valdosta. Love Costco a whole lot better, but both of them are great. But I remember my dad he'd rotate the stock. I never had to be worried about toilet paper. In the top of our linen closet in the bathroom, there would be stacks of toilet paper and paper towels. My guess is, when we lived on Cedar Drive, that we weren't going to run out now because he had run out when he was younger. I know everybody listening online today or that's going to listen and people here, you probably know you need toilet paper. And I encourage you, don't wait to the last minute, because you know what they've started doing at these locations? Limiting some things that you can buy. Not a lot yet, but they're being strategic in what they do. So always have toilet paper on hand. I'd say a minimum of a month's supply. I don't know what it's going to take to wipe your honey, but I know one fella. This might be a little excessive, but I don't know. It depends on how. I had one guy on one of the places that I listened to. He said you need 100 rolls for every fanny in your house. You make that decision. I'm just telling you, don't go without toilet paper. It's the top 15. Ziploc bags of various sizes. Again, as I said earlier, we might understand why. Our grandparents not only washed those, but they also washed their tin foil and would straighten it back out and reuse them. And paper plates, if it's a good quality paper plate, they would reuse paper plates. So again, we may come to that. I don't know. And if you're sitting there going, I'm never going to do that, don't ever say never. I'm just telling you, you don't know what's going to happen. Another one is cleaning supplies. If supply is lacking or you're confined to your home again because of a pandemic or other reason, you need to have certain cleaning supplies on hand. Example is Clorox wipes. You can buy the 5-pack now. I forget, it's like under $10 or $12, something like that, at Costco. The things that you couldn't get during the pandemic, right? Oh my goodness, it's going to try to buy Clorox wipes or disinfectant wipes during the pandemic was like you could buy cat food, but you couldn't buy Clorox wipes. But now you've got plenty of Clorox wipes and you're limited on cat food. So I include that you have some. They're inexpensive at most locations. Again, you get better prices most of the time at one of the big chains like Costco or Sam's. Having a clean house, one source said, is both a morale boost and helps prevent the possibility of spreading further germs. Here's the top 15. Unscented bleach, having several gallons of those. Each family member or person has certain items that you like to use already for cleaning, so I'm not going to give you a bunch of different things to use. You've got your own list. You've got what you like. Write them down on your planning sheet and then start buying them. One source said, this was a top 15, you need bottled vinegar. That will go a long way in killing germs. And then dish soap, that's important, don't you think, to be able to wash dishes with. Don't just go out and buy those little pods that go in your dishwasher. What if we got to wash water and we don't run all that water and we have to go back to the good old cleaning dishes by hand? Good cleaning rags to wash things with. Good cleaning rags to clean parts of your house with. Reusable, good quality sponges are things to put on your list also. Hand sanitizer is another one. If the water's not running, hand sanitizer is a good alternative. Clean hands are essential, especially following using the bathroom or the facilities, because you can spread germs that way. Now, hand cleaner will not take care of C. diff. It takes soap and water to do that, but it will take care of most of everything else. I encourage you now, don't be using hand cleaner or hand sanitizer to an extreme. From a medical standpoint, it can actually break down your skins and your immune system and can make you more susceptible to catching disease if it's something you're using hand cleaner or sanitizer multiple times during the day because you're OCD about germs. Another would be baby wipes, diapers, formula, diaper cream, and crib bedding. If you have babies or children, or you're going to have one soon, have a grandchild coming, maybe you want to help them prepare. We already know there's a baby formula shortage. Baby wipes can also be used by adults and children if you're not near a bathroom. So start stocking on some of those things now, because again, with the coming shortages, we don't know how much they're going to be available. And if they do become unavailable, some of you new parents out there are going to have to start using, like Mother did, your mother and grandparents, real diapers. Then you get to clean those diapers and wash them. And so safety pins would be essential. But you know what? It's okay. In fact, most pediatricians recommend regular diapers over these disposable diapers because they say it's healthier for a child. A lot more involved, and I'm not telling you what to do there. Another thing is garbage bags. You need kitchen bags, garbage bags, yard leaf bags. They have so many different uses. You can use them for trash, obviously. You can use the large one as a poncho for rain. You can use it as a toilet liner if you need it for that. There's just multiple uses. Use your imagination. You can use those for. I would suggest having at least a couple of the very large boxes of hand on both. Prescriptions, first aid supplies, and vitamins. Serious first aid training should be a must if time permits. It's more than just your average 3-hour first aid course. You need to get involved, if you can find it, into a more in-depth, perhaps combining a regular first aid course with wilderness first aid and combat first aid. Those are rare, but you can find them. You definitely need a good in-depth first aid book, not just some short thing. I have several first aid books, even though I've been in emergency medicine for 40 years. It's interesting that I'm not saying you would go this far, but the wilderness first aid, and not to get you to gross you out, but if a person cannot maintain their own airway and you don't have cell phone service or cannot contact anybody by radio, and you know if you leave them, the tongue's going to fall the back to the throat and you can't keep the head tilt chin lift to keep their airway open, you have got to guarantee that their airway stays open. So you put them on their left side. I teach how to roll a 600-pound patient with literally just 2 fingers without straining your back. And then they say to keep that tongue from falling backwards, even though they're in the left lateral recumbent position, because everything drains better to the left, you breathe better to the left. They tell you to take fishing line and a large needle and run it through their tongue and tie a knot, and then tie their tongue out of their mouth around one of the buttons on the shirt. Now that's getting hardcore, but I'm not saying you need to go that far, but getting into a first aid class, a good regular first aid class is a good way to start. You need a first aid bag or kit. I suggest you pack your own. Most of the kits you buy, what's best in them is the box it comes in. The key is you need to put in your first aid bag things that you will use in an emergency. The key is to know where your bag is. You need to know what's in your bag. You need to know where those items are in your bag, and you need to know how to use everything in your first aid bag. And by sharing with you, I'm not giving you any medical advice. I'm just suggesting or recommending any treatments. I'm not doing that either. Any injury or sickness now or later needs to be, if at all possible, evaluated by a qualified physician. So what do you need at your home? Well, let's talk about it. If this is any way possible, try to be on hand a minimum 90-day supply of your prescription medication. That's a must. If you can get your insurance company to give you 90 days ahead of time, that's better in case something is to happen. And Vasepa is already becoming where you can't get it in some parts of the United States, which is a high prescription dose fish oil that attacks the cholesterols in your bloodstream. But here's some of the things I would get. Neosporin, a triple antibiotic cream, several tubes, hydrogen peroxide, at least 2 bottles, isopropyl, alcohol, 2 bottles minimum. Again, I would go back and listen to this because we can't write real fast. Diphenhydramine or Benadryl, a liquid, topical, in the pill. Campho-phenique, arthritic cream, glucose tablets. NyQuil, burn cream. There's a Neosporin plus burn relief now. It doesn't require a prescription. Aloe vera with lidocaine you can get in most drugstores, and you can also get it at places like Walmart. Just look at aloe vera with the lidocaine on it. And then Silvadene cream I would have on hand because it takes a prescription to do that. It's a little pricey, but I would have my doctor write me a prescription. Providone tablet, iodine tablets, 2 bottles. Chiodophilus probiotic. Please get Chiodophilus. Now, right now you can get Acidophilus. Acidophilus was taught this years ago when my oldest daughter, Krista, was manager of Sweet Basil's here in Thomasville, and she told us that. I said, well, what is Acidophilus? Because I'd never heard of it before, and she said it's a healthy bacteria. And I'm thinking, I am not putting any kind of bacteria in my body. And she says, Dad, you need to trust me. And so you take like 3 or 4 pills when you start to feel bad, or it can be just any kind of infection or whatever, upset stomach, eat something wrong, and you take them, and then about 3 hours later you can take 3 or 4 more, and about 3 hours later, and most of the time within 24 hours or less, most of the time you'll feel better. Chiodophilus is just like Acidophilus, but the Chiodophilus you don't have to refrigerate after opening, which is a little bit more expensive, but it's better to have on hand. Tylenol and acetaminophen, several bottles. Aspirin chewable, several bottles. Ibuprofen, several bottles. Claritin, Pepto-Bismol, Imodium AD. Iosat, potassium iodide tablets. Non-latex gloves, correct sizes for everybody in your family, 1 to 2 boxes. I'll probably go with 2. Paramedic, or what's called trauma scissors. Extra reading glasses, not just if you're nearsighted and you need these, like, I need these now to read, but also for magnifying if you remove like a splinter or something like that. A SAM splint, which is a moldable splint that you can use multiple times. Pillow is probably one of the best splints you can have in your house. Wrap it around a hurt ankle or foot, duct tape it, use it for an arm to rest on. It's a good support. Hemostat or tweezers are just some of the things I would start with. If you've heard of Kent Rollins, whether you've heard him or not, I encourage you to watch him. He's just fun to watch. You can find him on YouTube. He's a cowboy. He and his wife do a video. It comes out once a week, I think on Wednesdays. You can watch all his back videos. You learn about Dutch oven cooking, grilling, cast iron care, working with a live fire. They're just great. Watching cook something, it's a great thing. Now, one of the things he needs that he has out, and I encourage you, write this down if you don't write anything else down right now. It's called Cowboy Cures, Natural Remedies, and Immune Boosters. Cowboy Cures, Natural Remedies, and Immune Boosters. So you'll learn a lot there. It's just tremendous. If you're diabetic, you need things like glucagon, extra insulin. Keep it cool, but know this, that once you've taken it out of the refrigerator, if it's not extremely hot, that insulin stays good on your counter for at least 30 days. That's direct from the pharmacy that I put in time with when I had a hurt back. You need insulin supplies, an extra glucometer, strips, lancets, and batteries. They're very inexpensive right now. One of the best ones I've ever used is the one that from Publix is a little bit more expensive. You can also get the Rely On and other brands like at Walmart, etc., between $20 and $40, etc. Keto Diasticks are for checking your level of sugar in your urine. Vitamins. These 3 vitamins everybody needs in their homes, and you need to be taken now. Vitamin C. This is by an internal medicine physician that I know back before even the pandemic hit. And even without it, he said every person needs to be taking vitamin C every day, vitamin D3, and zinc. This is a critical minimum. It would help build up your immune system and help to fight off disease. It's also taking a multi-B vitamin helps. My wife and I also take, in addition to zinc, calcium, magnesium, and zinc, which you can get in one bottle. It helps prevent muscle cramps. Speaking of muscle cramps, if you start having severe muscle cramps, pickle juice is one of the best things out there to drink. You may not like it. It tastes better cold, but it'll help get rid of your cramps almost within a few minutes. It's wonderful. Also mustard, squirting. I know this sounds terrible, but you can Google it online. This is what football coaches use and other coaches, and it's still listed as 2 of the best ways to take care of muscle cramps. Just squirting mustard in your mouth and squishing it around, swallowing it, okay? Now, don't mix the mustard in the pickle juice. That's gross, I'm just saying. If you can handle it, that's fine, but it's up to you. Any particular medication you need, you get it. I can't go into specifics any more than this. There is another medication that I would highly recommend that you get. Email me, lessonsonthejourney@yahoo.com. I'll tell you what that medicine is. I'm not going to announce on here because I've already been kicked off of one thing on YouTube, and I'm on my another additional. If you wonder why I'm still broadcasting on my wife's Facebook page, is I was on Facebook jail for 90 days, not able to do any live broadcasts from my page. And the day it ran out, I got a news thing from Facebook. You've been banned for another 90 days. Well, the way I'm looking at it, I must be making a difference. This was a picture that I used all the way back at the beginning of 2021. And it was had to do with Joe Biden's son, and it was a picture that was picked up by all the news media, and it was broadcast around the United States and the world, but they decided to use that, if you will, to put me in another 90 days, which I think sometimes better because I'm getting more response on my wife's page. Maybe like her better, I don't know, than on mine. The important thing I want to tell you is the hotter it gets, stay hydrated. Heat cramps and heat exhaustion are back to back. They can come on very rapidly. If you begin experiencing those, you've got to get out of the heat, and you're done for the day. People that I know have gotten heat cramps or heat exhaustion before, I can tell you if there's a paramedic, we're picking those people up again within a couple hours. They can stay out for 4 hours and go right back out in the heat, and it's going to hit you twice as fast. So cool off, put water on the outside of your body, get in some cool air, drink plenty of water. This is found in all first aid books. Cokes won't fix it, caffeinated drinks won't fix it, etc. Because if you don't take care of it, you'll get heat stroke, which is life-threatening, and that can follow these very rapidly. Again, non-water products will not keep you hydrated. I've already talked about prescription meds, so let's leave that and go down to fire and lighting. This is the top 15. You need large lighters. The big lighters, store them in a metal container. Also gas or grill lighters, not gas, but the grill lighters that have the little switch. You need matches. You need strike anywhere matches. You need storm-proof matches. You need standard matches, and you need fire starters. You need oil lamps and lanterns in your home. You need extra lamp wicks, extra lamp oil. You also can buy, this is from my brother-in-law, you can buy a cheap, if you can find it, vegetable oil or peanut oil. And what it will do, it will burn in an oil lamp. If you use kerosene oil, you're going to run into a problem, though it works wonderful, but when you blow it out or turn it off, it leaves a horrendous smell in your house. It's fine for using outside. If you use it outside, it's wonderful, but before you bring it in, you need to wait 10 to 15 minutes before bringing those inside. You need extra Duracell batteries, AA, AAA, CR123s, maybe double Ds, some of your flashlights. They say most Duracell batteries, they say, can last up to 10 years if they're in a cool place. You need flashlights, the #1 security tool, that's a top 15. Candles, 12-hour candles, 100-hour candles, regular candles, and things to put them in. Solar lights for outside. Buy the inexpensive solar lights that are like Walmart that you can stick in the ground and the thing angulates at the top. Take the sticky thing, the pointed thing off and set them in your window, angle the top towards the sun. And then if the power goes out, you can have light in your home without having to burn candles, flashlights, etc. You can use them inside for lighting. Let's talk about medical supplies. Okay, this is a top 15. What do you put in the bag? I mean, we've talked about medicines, but now I didn't cover what to put in the medical bag, so let me give you some ideas. Non-latex gloves. Don't put a whole box in there. Just put a handful of whatever sizes, say, like Ben and Cheryl up in Ohio. Ben probably wears one size and Cheryl wears a different size. So you put a bunch in one Ziploc bag and a bunch in the other, and you put extra large or small, whatever, on the bag so you know they're there. Don't just put 2 or 3 because gloves tear. Emesis bags. A lot of gauze or 4x4s. Minimum 1 large package per family. Also have 2x2s for smaller things. You need roller bandages, preferably 3-inch and 4-inch. It's not bad to have 6-inch either. Various tapes and sizes, trauma scissors again, surgical scissors, sterile cotton swabs, good Band-Aids of various sizes, splinting material, we've already mentioned, like the SAM splint, triangle bandages, you can be taught how to use those. They can be used as cravats, and they also can be used to support a broken extremity. Emergency blankets, large safety pins, ice packs that can be reused but don't last that long, and you throw them in your freezer. Of course, you can't carry them cold in your bag. Once you pop it and you break it, it's not super cold, only stays cold for a short time. But if you throw it in your freezer and it comes out and it's all bent up, it's going to stay bent up and still it starts to thaw. But if you want to put something in your freezer now that you can use over and over that will freeze up hard, but then you can do this and it will automatically mold to whatever you want to, make your own. Get you a gallon freezer Ziploc bag or even the quart size and put 1/3 rubbing alcohol, 1/3 water, and keep the other third empty, and then get all the air out, mix it together, throw it in, and it will come out super, super cold, and you can mold it around an extremity. And we used to that. It's recommended by most first aid companies. We used it, and our kids played soccer. It's a lot of uses. And I used it also when my back was killing me. Trauma dressings, butterfly bandages, steri strips, ACE bandages of various sizes are a must. Again, put these things in Ziploc bags. The problem when you buy a first aid kit, everything's in these little boxes. And if you're sitting there and you're bleeding to death, you go, honey, it's okay. Just relax. I know you've lost 200 cc's of blood, but I'm still looking in these boxes for what I need. No, it doesn't work that way. And then the little 4x4s they give you, it puts one in a 4x4 sterile bandage. One 4x4 is not going to stop the bleeding on anybody. So put it in there where you can see it. Keep it clean. It does not have to be sterile. Let's talk about personal hygiene. Deodorant. Many say it should be unscented. Feminine products, of course, have a good supply of unscented body wash. They say Ivory soap bars are essential to go ahead and buy now because you can use them for everything, for clean you, to wash your clothes, to wash your dishes if you need it. But the bars are excellent. Extra toothbrushes and toothpaste. Back years ago when I lost an extremely large amount of money, I won't go into the reason why. I mean, they cut back at the technical college. We lost a major client down in Tallahassee at a hospital. Our church split due to somebody taking numerous people away. My salary literally dropped between those 3 places about $4,000 a month. And if my wife and I had not had some food put back and had not had extra toothbrush and toothpaste on what little shelf we had, I don't know what we would have done. We'd have had fog breath every time we walked around. Razors, shaving cream, aftershave, that's questionable. Scissors for cutting and trimming hair, a comb or a brush. Makeup is not a necessity. Well, maybe for some people it is. But you can add to the list, okay? Let's talk about washing clothes. I know this is a lot of stuff, but again, these are things we need to know. You need to have an alternative source for washing your clothes and drying them. Who knows? You may have to go back to like your great-grandmother and use a washboard. I hope it never gets to that. Or your dryer. You can't afford to run the dryer because power has gone so high. Clotheslines will still dry clothes outside. I mean, and I used to love the way it felt after my grandmother would dry those and she would put them on the bed and the air conditioner would blow on it and that hard, crisp sheet felt so good. So what are you going to use? Well, you're going to have soap and water to do your clothes with, so figure out how you're going to use it. And since we're talking about washing clothes, this is a top 15. You need some sturdy clothing. You need at least a good couple pair of blue jeans, not those fashion blue jeans that have the holes in them. That in the good old days, if they had holes, you earned those holes. Now you pay high dollar because that looks so cool to have multiple holes in your jeans. That's crazy. Okay, blue jeans without the holes. Okay, a good set of workbooks, both male and female. Okay, good pairs of socks. We'll mention that again later, and also good work shirts. Miscellaneous other items and ideas that are just as important. As a friend of mine, Eddie Waldrop, said, whose community keeps in communication with one of our pawn shops here, he's watched a cycle. Said for a while there, he went to look for some items, and there was no items that he needed like that. Normally, they're stocked full. And the reason there was nothing there and their shelves were almost empty is because times were good. People didn't need to pawn things. He said, but now things are getting bad. People are losing their jobs. Prices are going up. They're finding out food is more important than things. So you can go to the pawn shop now, and because they're hurting financially, more pawn things have been pawned and are available there at a pawn shop. So that might be a source for you to look at things also. Other things, this is a top 15. A hand-cranked, solar-powered weather radio is a must. This is another top 15. Some type of generator or generators. The quieter, the better. There are those you can hook together with the right device, and they'll run in sync. And then if you run out of power, you can use those if you have enough gas cans to keep everything cold in your refrigerator and freezer. Now, brother-in-law said every 6 hours, run it for an hour. That should keep things cold. Don't open the door. And if you're opening the door for any reason, make sure your generator is running and maybe add some time to it. But you're going to have some way to run the generator if you have one. Extra gas and propane containers, large and small, is a top 15. I don't know if you've priced the gas cans lately, but what used to was not that expensive, and now $35 to $50 for a 5-gallon gas can. Go figure. You need to have an alternative cooking source. It would be better if your stove ran off of propane, or not necessarily gas from your municipal supply, or if the grid goes down or you don't have any electricity. But even if you cook with propane, okay, no one else needs to know what you're doing. I mean, that's the exciting part. So I know my brother-in-law bought a camp stove for every one of his kids, and they kind of looked at it, what for? Just this is what we wanted for Christmas. And he said, if your stove goes out, how are you going to provide for your family? And they use the little bottle of propane. It says we can use those. Now, I've had people, and I used to think, well, I've got a couple of grills, and I've got a smoker, and I've got a griddle, and he goes, we'll be fine. Well, just remember, if things get really bad and you cook outside, that nice smell of your food doesn't stop right there at that griddle, or whatever you're cooking on. It's going to go all over your neighborhood, and people don't know what you're cooking. If you're doing indoor cooking, they recommend you close your blinds and curtains to keep prying eyes out from knowing what you're doing and that you have food, etc. Already talked about prices of gas cans have increased, but you've got to have them to keep your freezer and refrigerator running at least for a short while. Another top 15 is bags, contractor bags, brute, compact bags. Also, keep those plastic small grocery bags. You can use them for all kinds of things. If needed, a source to completely black out your windows, you can use those black trash bags to do that. At least black out one room, that if you need to not let the entire neighborhood know you have power, then you're able to do that. So heavy-duty 10-milliliter trash bags will work. Blankets you can use also. It's just going to be creative putting them up. And you can always use darkened tarps. Tarps is also a top 15. Canvas tarps with eyelets. Paracord is essential for tying things down along with bungees. That's a top 15 item. A good set of non-electric tools is a top 15. Nails, screws, hammers, screwdrivers, pliers, things like that. Another top 15 is duct tape. Several rolls, regular duct tape, Gorilla duct tape, nobody can pull off. They have numerous uses. But keep them out of extreme heat or they get super sticky and they don't work well. Also included with duct tape is WD-40. Top 15 is good socks that we've already mentioned. Top 15 is salt with iodine, several of those. Top 15 is heirloom seeds. Hybrids won't reproduce. You need to be doing some type of gardening, and they're recommending that everyone start doing at least some indoor gardening. You can also use, we talked about buckets. You can use for and catching rainwater. You can catch rainwater off the roof to water your plants with if it's running down. But I would have the 5-gallon buckets out with a food liner insert that won't come off, and be able to catch drinking water there if you need it. But there are a few states, you're not going to believe this, because of the new world order, they're starting to ban that you cannot collect rainwater. And they'll fine you if you do and jail you if you're caught the second time. Why are they doing that? Well, draw your own conclusions. Having a stainless steel pot or pots to pour your fat into after you've used it, to reuse it. Grandmother used to. She used to have a thing she'd filter the grease through and pour it in, etc. They say you can cook your pork sausage and pour fat in, and then put the pork in and the grease on top, and it'll preserve it for weeks, if not months. It's interesting. I don't know if I'm ready to try that yet or not. Having a few cast irons, pots, pans, baking dishes for using in preparation of meals could be a must. You have to know how to clean them and also season them. Eddie Waldrop said ants will be your #1 enemy in food storage. So important to keep your food items protected and secured for them. Again, keep them up off the floor if at all possible. Start canning meats now. Water glass your eggs. There's a book, original 1896 Boston Cooking School cookbook by Franny Merritt Farmer. It's around $13 at Amazon, but talks about water glassing eggs. You can also Google it, a little bit cheaper online. Another source instructs you to use powdered lime to put your eggs in. Put them with the point down. I didn't realize this. Eggshells consist of 90% lime. You put them in lime, pour oil on top, and acts as a moisture barrier. Keep them in a cool spot. And some say those eggs will be good for 2 years. That's if they've not been refrigerated first. If they haven't washed them to take the surfactant off and they've not been refrigerated. You need extra blankets and sheets, good quality sleeping bags. We have a Coleman. I have 2 of these actually because I use them at the ambulance service because of different stations. It's a Coleman 3-layer. I love it. It has a lighter sheet. It has a middle warming thing. And it has a heavy duty over on the top, so it's useful in all kinds of weathers. But you need to store them and keep them free from bugs. Non-scented mothballs. My brother-in-law suggested a window air conditioner that he's read somebody is recommending. At least you could cool run room. Now you got to have a window in that room to put the thing in. I mean, you realize that. And in that room, you may be able to, depending on your house, you may have to do your cooking and you're sleeping in that room or whatever. And it may happen, you may need it due to projector rolling blackout, so you'd hook it up to your generator. I was told they're around $100. I priced them at Walmart the other day. Depending on the size you get, they're $150 to $300 now. Having a Generac type system for your house, man, that'd be great, wouldn't it? That's been on my list now because they're only like $5,000 to have them put in and installed, but to keep your entire house running for whatever, as long as you have a huge propane tank. Another top 15 is a solar generator. Jackery is, they say, one of the best brands. Blue Eddy's another one. Patriot Supply has them also. They come in various wattage availability. They have their limitations, but they also have their main advantage. They run anywhere from several $100s to $2,000 to $3,000 a piece. Wow. We have covered a lot of stuff. What time is it? It's time to quit. I know there's a lot of information we went through today. Again, if you've not listened to last week, please do so. That's the foundation for everything. This is stuff you need. Some of these things you'll need more than others. Some you'll get, some you won't. That's okay. But this is built on top of you doing your food and water first. That's the important thing. It's my hope that it's, again, beneficial, that it'll help you prepare what may be coming our way. So let me encourage you to do a couple things. Go back and listen to both these prophecy updates. The easiest place to find them is going to be on our Crossroads Fellowship Facebook page, because I don't put anything else there but the messages. The next best place is where you're listening at today, my wife's, Patricia Souders' Facebook page. She doesn't post nearly as much stuff as I do. That's why she's not in jail. And of course, there's mine. Okay, mine you have to go through, and you'll find it because there'll be stuff on top and below it. Okay. My hope is that down the road soon we'll be able to do not Facebook Live, but YouTube Live. So not only will we be doing live Facebook, but also we'll be able to do the same thing, so we're not having to double a lot of extra work. and I can set up another camera, and we can, while I'm doing Facebook, I can go direct live to YouTube, and it'll be saved under my account. But they'll not let me do that until I have at least 50 subscribers. So let me encourage you. It's Greg Souders, has a picture of the church, just so we can do the YouTube live also. It would save a gentleman that's helped me a lot of time, because it takes a while for him to download the Facebook video, to put it over to YouTube, and runs into problems sometimes. A couple of them he couldn't even do because of the problems he ran into. But once we go live, I need 50 subscribers. They let me on for a limited time, and if subscribers go up, then I'm become unlimited. Again, take notes. Okay, we've covered a lot of material in both these days. Apply what you feel God would have you to do, and ignore the rest. And then I encourage you, number 3, to share what you know with others. There's no way we've covered everything. I'm sure you've got some other wonderful ideas. I said this last week, and didn't give you a way to do that because you can't really post on these sites on Facebook. So again, send me your information if you'd like to lessonsonthejourney@yahoo.com, and I'll share that with others on our future prophecy updates. Number 4, share these prophecy updates with others. Most people do not have a clue what's happening or what is coming or why they should be doing what they're doing. So I encourage you to tag your children, your parents in this, other people on Facebook, other family members, friends, anyone else that God lays on your heart. I had somebody up in the South Point, West Virginia area that listens regularly said he shared this with 3 people, and he got 3 likes. That just made my day. I don't know, it just did. I thought it's 3 more people that could have been that have been helped. So whether they choose to listen or not, it's not up to you. But we're to be called to be a watchman on the wall, and how they respond is up to them. Number 5, and most importantly, get right with God. If you do not know beyond a shadow of doubt that Jesus Christ is your Savior, please trust Him today. I'm going to be going in depth to that about one of the greatest verses in the Bible in 1 Peter chapter 3. So I encourage you to come back at 10:30 and watch that with us. Also, that if you're a believer, we need to make sure we're right with God also. We're already saved. We already are secured. We know we're going to heaven. We've been sealed by the Holy Spirit. We're kept by the power of God, and we're in the hands of the Father and the Son, and nobody can take us away from them. But we need to be honoring Him and glorifying Him, as we have learned throughout our study in 1 and 2 Peter. And as 1 Chronicles 12:32 says, for the sons of Issachar who had understanding the times knew what Israel ought to do. So I'm asking you to be the church. Be a New Testament son and daughter of Issachar today. Understand the times that God's put you in to let you live. Know what you need to do as a family and what you need to do as a church. Don't be a lukewarm Christian. Be sold out for Him. Love Him with all your heart, mind, soul, and strength. Live a holy life to honor Him, and that it won't harm your testimony. Look for and long for His soon return, for the harpazo and rapture of the church. And as Chuck Missler said, we are being or have been plunged into a period of time about which the Bible says more than it does about any other period in history, including the time when Jesus walked to the shores of Galilee and climbed the mountains of Judea. And I encourage you, Maranatha, Jesus is coming. Amen? Amen.